this new president came in, and that trajectory that Nigeria was on in the lead up 2015, it didn't come down, it fell off a cliff.
Yeah.
Literally, 3 months before the election, Nigeria was the third fastest growing economy in the world. By the first, that was 2015, right? That's Q1 2015.
Okay.
By Q1 2016, Nigeria was in recession.
That's within a year.
Yeah. From 7% growth to negative growth.
That's Buhari's first year.
Yeah, within about 8 months. Everybody, like in my mind, I had like a list of everybody that I subjectively decided
To go after.
were the problems with Nigeria. And I was like, I'm going to go after all of you. It doesn't matter whether you are Dangote or which, I did go after him, by the way.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, I did. I went after everybody. Going into 2020, this was like my mission. I was fully committed. I was locked in every conceivable way.
Okay.
I was so locked in actually that the apartment that I had at the time, my rent expired in 2019. I didn't renew it and I moved into my office. Like I literally moved into my office.
Oh, wow.
That's how locked in I was.
Wow.
This is my life now. This is all I'm doing. This is all I have time for. This is it for me.
And I've been a fan. And every guest that I feature on Sell Africa to Africans, I give them their flowers. So I want to give you your flowers. You know, it's very rare we get people like you who literally put their livelihoods on the line for the sake of their people. And I've always wanted to know, where did that come from? Where did that urge of saying, no, I have to push, and I have to speak against poor Nigerian leadership? Like, where did that, like, what sparked you?
I would love to sit here and say that there was some grand design or there was some big, visually spectacular event that happened, but no, not really. It was more of a combination of many little factors, starting from my childhood. So I was raised in what, if I'm being humble, I would call an upper middle class family, probably a little better off than that. And one striking feature of my background was because we were Jehovah's Witnesses.
Oh, okay.
So that in itself, there's a whole story there, which I'll probably get to in a sec. But the key defining feature of my childhood was that there was this duality that I constantly saw. So on the one hand, I'm living the life that people think I'm living, right? Very, very privileged lifestyle by African standards.
Okay.
On the other hand, because we're Jehovah's Witnesses and the vast majority of Jehovah's Witnesses in that part of the world are not privileged people, and you're worshiping with them on a weekly basis. Back then, I don't know if it's still the case now. Back then, you had to go out with a bag and preach.
Oh.
Meet people as they are in their neighborhood. So, and then in my family, we kind of took it a step further because I think, I'm not entirely sure why my parents took that decision, but instead of choosing a congregation that was closer to home, they chose one that was like 7 or 8 kilometers away outside of the middle class bubble that we were in a very, very, very underprivileged part of Lagos. So if you ever Google K2, that's Ketu in Lagos, just see what it looks like. It was that kind of place.
Okay.
Like stereotypical African urban slum, like a real slum, where there's slum houses with like doors, door to door. In Nigeria, they call it face me, I face you.
Oh,
right.
They share.
Yeah. And there's like 20 doors in one passageway and all of them are sharing one toilet and one kitchen. When you enter the place, there's this smell of kerosene residue, a faint hint of urine, and just the smell of poverty, as I call it.
Okay.
And you have to go in there and you can't show discomfort because you're trying to sell something to people. Back then, we're physically trying to sell magazines to people.
Okay.
Right. And why that had such a striking impact on me when I was a child was that even as a child, I could see very clearly that something was very, very wrong with this picture. I could see that the people that we are going to preach this thing to, These are people whose problems I can see very clearly. Their problems are economic. And I can see very clearly that my old man who's with me, who's trying to sell them a 20 naira Watchtower or Wake magazine, this guy, if he so wished, could change their lives at any given point in time. And I say that with all due humility, but that's just the reality. And he didn't. And instead, he's selling them this thing where they're basically being told that their hope for having a better life comes from the kingdom of God. So we were living in the kingdom of God from their perspective, because we lived in a way that was probably outside of their scope of imagination.
Yes.
Right. So we had the life that they didn't even know was possible. But then we would leave our house. It was an 8-bedroom mansion and then in a very nice part of town. Would leave our house, right? We'll choose one of our 6 cars to take out, drive out of the GRA, that's government reservation area.
Okay.
Drive 7 kilometers down the expressway to this really underprivileged neighborhood, which is directly opposite the landfill site. And then the smell from the landfill site is constantly wafting over. So you can imagine. And we're here telling these people that
come join the kingdom of God.
The kingdom of God is going to solve all your problems. This person I'm talking to, the house he's living in, probably my school fees for that term is more than his annual rent.
Man.
Easily. But I'm here telling this person that his problems, which I can clearly see are economic, will be solved only by the kingdom of God. Somehow there are no available solutions. There are no human solutions to his problem. I knew immediately, even as a child, that not just from a doctrinal point of view or from a religious point of view, but just from a social point of view in general, something is very, very wrong with this society. I could just, because the disparity is so jarring in Nigeria that it's very difficult to ignore. Maybe in a place like Kenya, even though obviously there is inequality, but there is also an effort to at least dress it up. So if you bring someone from Nigeria who has lived all their lives in Lagos or Port Harcourt or something, you bring them to Nairobi, it's like a different world to them, because everywhere you go in Nairobi, even in the underprivileged areas, the main roads, they look okay. They're motorable. There's tall buildings everywhere. There is poverty, but it's not like, the Kibera type of poverty that you see everywhere. In Nigeria, it's not like that. In Nigeria, it's like there's Lavington and there's Kibera and there's nothing in between. And they're right next to each other. And that's how the whole country is.
Okay.
So it's very jarring. I don't know if you've seen those pictures of the public buses in Lagos, what they look like, those yellow buses.
I haven't. How are they?
You should Google them. They look like they've taken bullets, right? Old, they're probably not in roadworthy condition. They're awful to look at. And right next to one of those buses, which has like 30 people inside, you might see a Rolls Royce Cullinan. So that's just the kind of place it is. And because I grew up in both worlds, it created that duality in me. And I knew that even though there was no like ideological clarity on what I want to do when I get older or something, but I just knew that I'm not okay with this. I'm not okay with the idea that poor people need to wait for God. Or that there are no solutions to their problems. I'm not okay with the idea that, I remember there was a time when, because my dad was kind of like a well-respected person within the Jehovah's Witness organization, and he was giving a talk, as they call their sermons.
Okay.
And he was referencing Nigeria's perennial electricity problem. And he said something to the effect of, these are all problems that will be solved in the kingdom of God. And I thought to myself, well, maybe from these people's perspective, constant 24/7 power is something that only a divine intervention can provide. But from our perspective, why don't we live like that? If we believe that it's only a divine intervention that can provide that, why do we have a 35 kVA diesel generator at home? When we travel, even within Africa, why do these other places within Africa with people that look just like us, why do they have these things? And somehow these people have to wait for the kingdom of God. So from that age, I just understood I don't want to be part of whatever this is, both on a spiritual or religious level and on a social level. Whatever this thing is that maintains people at these extremes, I don't want to be part of it. I'm not comfortable with it. And at the time, when I was like a teenager, I thought that my solution for that would be just to leave.
Okay.
Like leave Nigeria as soon as I was old enough to and just never come back. That's what I thought at the time. I don't want to be part of this. I've psychologically rejected this society that I'm from, and I'm just going to go away and never come back. So at 18, I actually went away. I went to study in the UK. So I went to the University of Hull. I studied for 3 years. I did a Bachelor of Arts in Creative Writing and Media Culture and Society, which is like a creative writing and journalism double honors program. And then after I finished, I decided to stay in the UK and see if I could find some work. And I spent 2 years bouncing from one pointless job to another. So if you just mention any random job, I've probably done it. I've worked at a supermarket till, I've worked as a factory floor operative, different kinds of factories. I think the worst job I had was at a place called Iqbal Poultry Factory in 2012 in a place called Wythenshawe outside Bradford.
How was it?
My job was after the chickens have been beheaded and they've been put on the line going past. My job was to put my hand, gloved hand, into the hole where the neck hole where the head used to be and bring out the heart, toss it. And sometimes the heart will still be beating and it will squirt chicken blood in your face. And no matter how much you shower after your shift, you come out smelling like chicken shit. Every single time. I did all those kinds of things until eventually I realized like, I'm not going anywhere. I'm not doing anything with my life. I have a degree. I'm not getting anywhere. This society that I'm in, that's the UK, it's clearly not built for me to get ahead. Even though I didn't necessarily have a full understanding of what like systemic racism is or anything like that, I could clearly see that if you look like me in this society, there's a definite disparity in how you are treated. It's not because I'm dumb that I'm not getting this interview or that I interviewed and I'm not getting this role. It's not because I don't have the grades. It's not because I don't have the capacity. It's not because I didn't perform well. There's something else. And it's clear what that something else is. And eventually I reached the conclusion that the only place where it's possible for me to achieve self-actualization was back home. So I took the decision in 2013 to just pack up and just return home. So I got home April 2013. In Nigeria, there's a mandatory 1 year national service program. I don't know if you have something like that here.
National service, we don't, huh? Right. We don't.
Right. So it's called the NYSC, the National Youth Service.
Oh, we do. NYS. Yeah, national. Oh, it's mandatory. Yeah. It's mandatory in Nigeria.
It's mandatory.
Oh, yeah. Wow. Okay.
You can only get an exception if you graduated over the age of 30. But if you're a university graduate, it's mandatory. You have to do it.
Wow.
So I spent a year doing that and I went inland, up country, to a state called Ekiti State. It's like most people don't go to Ekiti State.
Why though?
It's out of the way. It's like going to West Pokot or something. What would you be doing there?
I get you.
Yeah. So I spent a year there working at the local TV station. And after I finished that, which was quite an interesting experience, then I got back to Lagos and my idea was that I was going to get a job in the journalism space in Lagos, maybe get a job in print. And from there, figure out my path. Fortunately or unfortunately, it didn't work out that way. I was actually able to secure a position at a daily newspaper called The Vanguard. But they decided very quickly, the editor assessed me and decided very quickly that you're not going to stay. You're going to move on within 6 months.
Okay.
Because apparently they gave me this, like, an assignment to do, like to assess me. And the standard at which I delivered, they decided that this guy is just going to leave. Okay. So there's no point hiring him and creating churn in our newsroom. So he then made the decision to hook me up with what he thought was a better job.
Okay.
So he called up a friend of his who ran a public relations agency. And that's how I ended up starting my career in public relations. You know, people typically move from journalism
To PR.
PR. I moved from PR to journalism.
Interesting.
So I actually started off in publicity and PR.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that was 2014, October 2014 when I started. At that time, as you recall, Nigeria was the largest economy in Africa, $568 billion GDP.
Who was president? Good luck.
Good luck, Jonathan. Yeah. Growing at 7% annually, third fastest growing economy in the world, behind only China and Qatar, clashed as parts of a new development bloc, Mint, Mexico, Indonesia, Nigeria, Turkey. The country was on the tier, right? So I kind of took it for granted that, of course, this trajectory is just going to continue naturally. I mean, I didn't know too much about Nigeria's history at the time. All I knew was that, well, the country now is apparently a better place than it was when I was a kid. And it's obviously going to continue along that trajectory. Why wouldn't it? So 2015 came along, and even though where I worked wasn't directly involved in the presidential campaign, because there was an election coming up in 2015, a lot of our sister agencies were involved in the campaigns and were working for the political opposition.
Okay.
So I had a front row seat to a lot of things which I had never seen before and which were very confusing and very frightening to me at the time. I mean, if you were to mention the term regime change operations to me at the time, I would have had no idea what you were talking about. I had no idea what I was looking at. All I knew was I'm seeing something and I don't like what I'm seeing at all. Is this an election or is it a war? What is going on? So I'll give you an example of something I saw.
Okay.
There used to be a platform, a South African tech platform called AdDynamo. I think it's defunct now. And what AdDynamo used to do was you could pay to create artificial trending topics on social media, especially on Twitter back then. So you put in your keyword, the keyword that you want to trend, and you would pay, and they would create the trending topic.
Okay.
Because back then that was a big deal. That's how to get people talking about something, get it onto the trend board. And I was in the room one day when one of these agencies that shall not be named, someone right in my presence put in a keyword that was the name of a Nigerian ethnic group. And it was the word, it was being used as a pejorative. And this was apparently part of the political opposition campaign. And the idea was to get people talking about this ethnic group in Nigeria in a negative light. Because the idea was the incumbent president supposedly has a support base within this ethnic group. So everybody else needs to attack this ethnic group. And they need to be made to feel unsafe so that maybe on election day, they're not going to come out to vote. And I had never seen any of these sort of tactics before. I didn't understand. Like, yeah, I get you want to win an election, but is it ever really that serious?
I know.
You know, I didn't know what I was looking at. Tell you something else I saw. This actually happened before I returned to Nigeria, but it was after I resumed work at this place and I started developing contacts within the space that I realized what had happened. So if you recall, in 2012, Nigeria had its last major civilian airline disaster, the Dana Air crash of 2012, which killed 112 people, was it?
Wow.
Huge. It was an MD-83 that crashed just outside the airport in Lagos. I lost a friend on that crash, by the way. Now, I remember at the time I was in the UK, and within an hour of the news coming out that this plane had gone down, I was getting broadcast messages claiming that the reason the plane went down is because it had been circling, asking for permission to land, that it had a problem, but the air traffic controllers at Lagos airport supposedly refused to give it permission to land because the president's wife wanted to land first. And that because the president's wife wanted to land first, that's why this plane went down. Later on, when I came back and I got into this space, I actually got to meet the person who composed that message. And I got to realize this whole thing, it was just part of a demonization project.
Okay.
Which had started as far back as 2011. Right? So again, I didn't understand what I was looking at yet, but I knew I was looking at something really, really, really ugly. Because this level of strategic planning and, malevolence is not really something you'd expect to see in a Nigerian election. I mean, a Nigerian election typically is like, there's a lot of noise and signal and whatnot, but it's for like 5 minutes and everybody calms down and, moves on. So this thing of planning for the next election starting 4 years before and, creating these complex narratives to completely astroturf the public imagination and turn people into rabid haters of an administration, whether they even understood why they hated it or not. I just didn't understand it. It took years, actually. I would say it took maybe until about 2017, 2018 before I started to decode the things that I had seen. That first of all, the person who ran the campaign for the so-called opposition then was an American by the name of David Axelrod, who you may recall ran President Obama's 2008 change campaign. In fact, he basically transplanted Obama's 2008 campaign and made it Buhari's 2015 campaign. The keywords were the same, change. Everything was the same. They just transplanted that and that. And then all these dirty tricks and underhanded things I had never seen before that I didn't know existed. That is where those things came from. So I would say by like 2017, 2018, by this point, I had left marketing. I had started working in TV. I was working on a political satire show called The Other News. So if you ever watched The Daily Show.
Yeah. Trevor Noah.
It's basically modeled after The Daily Show. I was a writer on that show. And at this point, I had started understanding that something very, very ugly happened in 2015 and that the actors behind it were not even Nigerian. Right. I still didn't have the full picture of it yet, but I knew that somebody thumbed the scale, somebody interfered in Nigeria's political space. And as a result, this new president came in and that trajectory that Nigeria was on in the lead up 2015, it didn't come down, it fell off a cliff. Yeah. Literally, 3 months before the election, Nigeria was the third fastest growing economy in the world. By the first, that was 2015, right? That's Q1 2015.
Okay.
By Q1 2016, Nigeria was in recession.
That's within a year.
Yeah. From 7% growth to negative growth.
That's Buhari's first year.
Yeah. Within about 8 months.
Damn.
Yeah. So again, at the time, I still didn't understand that there's such a thing as an economic hitman. I didn't understand those concepts then, but I knew that somebody who shouldn't have been made president came into office and that somehow these external characters were involved in it. And I thought that, okay, ahead of the next election, because this was like around 2018, I knew that, well, I didn't have much of a voice then. I was kind of trying to build a voice at the time. Nobody really knew who I was. I think I had like 700 followers on Twitter or something. I wasn't doing hard journalism yet. I was writing for a political satire show. I used to write for a few American websites and stuff, but nobody in Nigeria read them. So in fact, I think I had appeared in the New Yorker magazine. And nobody in Nigeria knew who I was.
Okay. So when did they know who you really are?
It was after the election in 2019 where this guy who made Nigeria fall off a cliff retained power, as you do.
Yeah.
I, in hindsight, very naively, then decided that my mission over the next 4 years will be to ensure that the information space in Nigeria, which is very tightly controlled and which is full of a lot of distractions, that I would constitute myself a disruption in that information space. And that in so doing, I would make it such that people would have the information that they needed to make an informed choice the next time around. That was the thinking that I had, because in my mind, something close to a mass brainwashing campaign had taken place between 2011 and 2015, which led to what shouldn't have happened in 2015. And between 2015 and 2019, the people, for whatever reason, even though they had witnessed their country fall off a cliff and people had started leaving again, people who had come back to Nigeria to Nigeria has a large diaspora. So people who came back around the same time I came back, because the whole Africa rising narrative was a thing at the time and the economy was doing things we had never seen it do before. Those people had started leaving.
Okay. Oh.
So if you've ever heard of a slang called the Japa, Nigerian slang, which is a slang for emigration.
Emigration.
It was around 2016, 2017 that it became a thing.
Okay.
Again. So up until that point, Nigeria had been pretty much like a net recipient of like its diaspora, labor and investment. Those people that started leaving again. This wasn't hypothetical. I saw it in my own personal life. There were people that I went to school with in the UK who had come back, and between 2016 and 2018, nearly all of them left. And they all went to the UK, Canada, the US, Australia, New Zealand, mainland Europe. Everyone left. So at that point, I'm thinking, okay, ahead of 2023, something really needs to be done to the public psyche to galvanize them, to make them understand that something very horrendous has been done to them and that they need to make a better choice in 2023. They need to elect someone who's not going to take a 7 and turn it into a -3 in 8 months, right? So I say naively because, knowing what I know now, it was never really just about voting, but I'm getting ahead of myself. So that's how I got into hard journalism. So it was 2019. I was writing for a Norwegian-based website called ccn.com. It was like focused on US politics, but it was owned by a Norwegian guy, as you do. So I was writing for that website and I decided to write an analysis of Nigeria's 2019 election. Okay. Which was actually intended for a US audience. But it's, for some reason, because the internet is that kind of place, it got picked up in Nigeria and it just went absolutely everywhere. Okay. So I think, bear in mind at the time, again, nobody knew who I was. I was much better known outside Nigeria than within Nigeria. My work on the TV show had earned me an IVLP nomination. So, that's the International Visitors Leadership Program, which is run by the US State Department. Back when I thought such things were good things. so at that point, I'm pretty much nobody, but this thing gets picked up and in the space of like 24 hours, I think it got cumulatively like 50,000 retweets or something. And it's everywhere. Okay. I'm like, does this mean something? And then little by little, Nigerian platforms for the first time start reaching out to me like, hey, we saw what you wrote. We'd like you to do a column for us or something. So I started doing like opinion pieces and editorials for Nigerian platforms. So there's a defunct platform called The Scoop, NG, then Business Day, which still exists. I became a columnist on Business Day, a weekly columnist. And eventually my column became the most read thing on Business Day, right? It was kind of a big deal back then. But even then, this wasn't investigative journalism. This was just opinions. Then around August 2019, back then, I was doing some work with an NGO in Lagos called Rise Networks. So they received some funding from the MacArthur Foundation to do like social awareness, blah, 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 blah. So because I had been the one who actually wrote the, what's the thing called when you ask for funding? The
proposal?
Grant proposal, yes. So I was the one leading the project. When the grants came in, it wasn't a lot of money. It was like $10,000, which for those kind of things, that's not a lot of money. So I decided that the story that I wanted us to highlight was something that was kind of near to my heart. So I have a cousin. His name is Joseph. I'm going to name him here. He's a doctor. So he was doing his house job. I don't know what terminology you use for that in Kenya.
House job, you mean household jobs?
No, like after you've qualified, and you have to do like a year, in like a government hospital.
Attachment. Attachment.
So that's what you call it.
Yes.
Right? So he was doing his house job, his attachment at a hospital in our hometown in Lagos. It's called Badagry. So the hospital there is called Badagry General Hospital. And he called me one day and he he had actually left at that point. He moved to the UK, as they all do. And he told me, look, even though I've left this place, the things that I saw there, I can't, in good conscience, just keep quiet about it.
Okay.
Something needs to be done. So he gave me access to some of the nurses and the doctors who actually were still working there. And they gave me access to like visuals of what was happening. And it was a mess. The generators weren't working. So sometimes doctors would carry out procedures using their phone flashlights. Like someone is holding the phone flashlight and you're doing like a cesarean section delivery.
Oh no, that's not good.
The hospital pharmacy was constantly out of stock. And very coincidentally, the MD of the hospital owned a private pharmacy, which was like next to the hospital. That one was never out of stock.
Of course. Of course. It's the same thing here, kind of. Yeah?
The basic hygiene was an issue because, the global standard is that doctors must wash their hands on the running water.
Yes.
But the taps weren't running.
So how do they?
So instead they had the bucket of water and they used a bucket and a baler, which you're not supposed to do. There were just so many things that were wrong with the place. And what I found the most distressing, apparently there's this, I think it's a hormone. I think it's called oxytocin. But someone should fact check me here. But it's something that is given to pregnant women who need to do a CS delivery. And apparently, the hospital had like an off-brand version of this hormone. And because of that, like the death rate for cesarean section deliveries, I think was 4 in 10. Like out of every 10 women who went in to do a CS delivery, 4 wouldn't come out. Because of this stupid little issue, like an off-brand hormone injection. So I decided to take on that story.
Okay.
It was my first attempt at any kind of investigative story. So we went there, we interviewed a couple of people, we got testimonies, we tried to take some visuals here and there because we had to do it like covertly. So this was published and it performed moderately well. It didn't go quite gangbusters like I hoped it would, but it got the attention of the Lagos State Health Service Commission. And then they decided to start doing like unannounced checks at this hospital. The MD almost got fired. He should have got fired, but there was political interference. That's another story. A bunch of doctors who weren't showing up to work because they had like private gigs on the side. They got fired. The generators were fixed, like a bunch of things.
So your story caused a change.
Yeah. And that was when the light bulb went off above my head in like August, early September 2019, that something I sat down and wrote on my laptop probably saved somebody's life. Okay. So if I have this kind of power, I want to keep using it.
Okay.
So I didn't know how I was going to at the time, but I said, I want to do more of this. Very fortunately, I think the universe has a way of aligning itself with you when you've made certain decisions. There's a lady called Mercy Abank. She used to run this platform called Newswire, ngr.com, which was kind of like a small independent news platform in Nigeria. But crucially, even though it was small, it had some significant social media presence. So if you publish something on it, people would see it, right? And when she reached out to me, like she saw the story and she wanted me to start doing investigative pieces for Newswire. She offered me a contract. Like I snapped her hand off because apart from the fact that people are going to actually read it, because the platform has some visibility, she was also offering basically editorial freedom.
Okay.
So I was like, okay, this is my project now. The money was crap.
Okay.
But it was not about the money for me at all. So at the time it was 100,000 naira a month. So 100,000 naira for reference now in USD will be roughly 65 USD.
65
Yeah.
dollars.
Yeah, a month. So again, this was not a lot of money at all. Like this is crap. But for me, first of all, because I'd left the TV station at this time. I was I was independent, I had started doing copywriting on the side, which was actually quite lucrative.
Mm-hmm.
So I felt like financially I'm okay. I have an income that can support me. This is actually what I want to do. So I'm using this copywriting thing as the bread and butter to fund my actual passion.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I started doing. So late 2019 was when this all began.
Okay.
And when I started, I had a very clear picture in mind that the Nigerian information space, which was dominated by these sort of characters from the 70s and the 80s, who have this very sort of parochial idea of what journalism is or is not.
Mm-hmm.
Journalism has to sound a certain way. A journalist has to self-present a certain way. Journalism is only delivered using certain vocabulary. They had all these rules which are really not based on anything, except that this was the norm when they were in their youth, right? I decided I wanted to subvert every rule in the book.
That's it. That's what I like.
Like that was my whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to use like explicit language in my stories.
You mean like F words,
Yeah.
S words?
I wanted to tell my stories in a way that wasn't the typical 5 W's and the H. So in journalism, there's a concept called the 5 W's and the H.
Mm-hmm.
What, where, when, who, and how.
Mm-hmm.
So every story has to include those elements. And there's a specific format. The opening sentence has to have this. The opening paragraph has to include all 5 elements.
Okay.
And then this is the next paragraph. Then this is the body. Then that's the quotes. And then that's the conclusion. That's the stereotypical
template.
That's the journalism. I said I want to turn that on its head. So instead of writing what looked like a typical story that people's eyes glaze over within 10 seconds of opening the page, I wanted my stuff to read like a crime thriller.
Okay.
I wanted it to hold your attention. Don't get me wrong. It's not that it's not hard journalism. It's not that it's entertainment. It's not entertainment. But I want to make sure that the information I'm passing across is actually sticking. You're actually reading it because it's going to hold your attention. So right out of the gates at Newswire, that's what I was doing.
Okay.
And right out of the gate, the traction came with it. Like it was 10 out of 10 from day one. Because the very first story I did was a story about a phenomenon that was known as the Abuja raids. So back then in 2019, the Abuja municipal government thing, they were led by this crazy lady, some lady called Ajia Safia Umar, who apparently didn't understand that there's a difference between your personal beliefs and your job as a public official. And she was like a very, very conservative Muslim. And she was like trying to like inject that into how Abuja was governed. So she had a specific thing against prostitutes and prostitution. So her whole thing was any young lady who is out on the streets after dark is a prostitute and has thereby committed a crime. Bear in mind, under Nigerian law, prostitution itself is not explicitly criminalized. It's a bit like it's a legal gray area.
It's like Kenya.
So, but she basically criminalized it by, she de facto criminalized it, which someone in the executive is not allowed to do. You can't create laws as someone who is leading a municipal government. So all kinds of crazy things were happening to young women in Abuja, whether they're prostitutes or not. So you would be, maybe you've closed from work and you're getting into, I guess, what you guys call it, tuk-tuk. So a tricycle home. And these thugs, because like the municipal thing actually hired thugs to be their enforcers. And these thugs would stop you in the middle of the road and you get hauled off to jail because you're a prostitute. Because why are you on the street at 8 p.m. as a young woman? So there was a video of her, which I dug out. There was a video of her saying that some of these women are they're so brazen that they actually go out without covering their hair. Because in her mind, if you're a woman and you're not covering your hair, as is the norm in her conservative, brand of the Islamic faith, that means that you're doing something wrong.
But is everybody Islam in Nigeria?
What?
But like, why is she doing? I mean, why does she believe that should be the case Like, does she believe that everybody in Nigeria is?
I don't know what her problem was. Maybe
Muslim?
again, she had difficulty understanding that there's separation of,
Yeah,
your individual beliefs have nothing to do
exactly.
with
That's what I'm
what you
asking.
do as a public official.
Yeah.
So crazy things were happening to women. They get hauled off to jail and then they get to jail.
Oh no.
Crazy things were happening. And like, I mean, if you Google the story, it's still up. You'll find it. Like, I don't want to mention some of the more gory aspects of it because it's going to color the conversation, but anyone who's watching can Google the story. Really awful things. So I did that story and it got her fired. It got her fired. And the story was cited a few months later in a ruling because one of the victims that I quoted in the story, she actually sued the FCT ministry. FCT is Federal Capital Territory. So she sued the FCT ministry and asked for compensation and whatnot. And the ruling that came out ruled in her favor and actually mentioned my story.
Wow.
So that was when the second light bulb went off above my head that, okay, you've become a powerful man now. So here's what we're going to do. Everybody, like in my mind, I had like a list of everybody that I subjectively decided
To go after.
were the problems with Nigeria. And I was like, I'm going to go after all of you. It doesn't matter whether you are Dangote or which I did go after him, by the way.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, I did. I went after everybody.
But later on we'll talk about his refinery and what's happening. But go.
So going into 2020, this was like my mission. I was fully committed. I was locked in every conceivable way.
Okay.
I was so locked in actually that the apartment that I had at the time, my rent expired in 2019. I didn't renew it and I moved into my office. Like I literally moved into my office. Oh, wow. That's how locked in I was.
Wow.
This is my life now. This is all I'm doing. This is all I have time for. This is it for me. Financially, it's not going to do much for me. And, I still have to do my copywriting to be able to pay my rent month to month and survive and whatnot. But I don't care. I don't know what this is going to accomplish. All I know is that for the next, I don't know how long, I'm going to throw myself at this system. Like in a manner similar to how a suicide bomber uses their body as a weapon. That's how I saw myself. Wow. That's literally how I saw myself, that this is going to be the most revolutionary thing in Nigeria's information space in decades. Wow. And I guess I succeeded.
I
guess I succeeded. just not in the way that I thought. Anyway, so 2020, the reputation just kept getting bigger with every story because the size of the targets kept getting bigger with every story, and the impact, or what I thought was impact, also kept getting bigger with every story. I'll give you an example. So in April 2020, at the height of the COVID-19 lockdown and all that stuff, the Nigerian National House of Representatives was trying to sneak through this very, I don't know what adjective to use, but they're trying to sneak through a piece of legislation that was essentially going to end civil liberties as a whole, under the guise of infectious diseases, protocols, yada, yada, yada. We're going to end freedom of association, freedom of movement. We're going to introduce predictive policing, all kinds of things. We're going to give police like powers so one of the clauses in the bill was that any police officer can detain someone without warrant if he believes that the person has an infectious disease. Which is a very broad and problematic wording. Because basically, Inspector Sunday on the street, who probably just finished primary 6 and can't even speak English or something, if he says that he thinks that you have a common cold, he can arrest you. Because the common cold is an infectious disease, isn't it? So, and this was something that I kept running into over and over, because one of the things that I became known for in 2020 was I was doing reviews of legislation that the House was trying to pass. So how the process goes in Nigeria is that there's a first reading, there's a second reading, there's a third reading, then it goes to the Senate, and there's other readings, and then it goes to the president to sign it.
Okay.
typically, if it goes past the third reading in the House, it's almost impossible
It's
to stop
over.
it.
It's over.
So what they used to do is the first and the second reading maybe will be on the same day. They'd rush it through. And then like maybe you'd get access to the bill like the night before the third reading.
When it's too late.
Yeah, that's what they used to do. So what I then became known for was I was a guy who, thanks to Mercy and some other contacts that I have, someone in the National Assembly, because another thing they used to do is there is no platform, there's no website where you can check what bills are being considered. You need to have a friend in there who knows. And there's so the friend will have to like use their phone and take pictures
of the documents,
and use cam scanner and send it to you. And that's how, so I was the guy, I would get it by 7 p.m. and I would sit down with my 3 laptops all night and I'm tearing through this thing and I'm writing a review of it and it goes out and it goes viral. And then by morning, it's on the 7:00 news.
Wow.
My review is on the news and it's creating an uproar and then hopefully that stops it from getting passed. That was what happened with this Infectious Diseases Act, because not only was I able to show that this thing is very, very, anti-liberty legislation, but that the wording of the bill itself, it was 98% plagiarized from the Infectious Diseases Act of Singapore.
Okay.
Of I think 1977 or something. So basically someone just took a very, very repressive bill from Singapore, which was not a democracy, by the way, and basically did a Control-G, removed Singapore and put Nigeria.
Okay.
And that bill had passed through 2 readings in the House, and it was about to become law if it passes through the 3rd reading. So I did that, and, myself and the spokesperson of the House, we got into a shouting match and whatnot. Eventually, that's what stopped that bill from getting passed.
Okay.
And that was when I think I won my first award. That was the People Journalism Prize for Africa 2020.
Wow.
So in my mind, this is impact. In my mind, I'm doing everything that I set out to do.
Wins after wins after wins.
Yeah, in my mind, the tide is turning. Things are changing. And I'm going to be the one who is going to take Nigeria kicking and screaming from this place of like ignorance to a place where people have access to high quality information to make better decisions. That's what I thought. Again, if you don't understand the full scope of a problem that you're dealing with, the solutions you will come up with, however well intended or brilliant as they might be, they will just keep falling short. That's what I discovered eventually. Toward the end of 2020, I had to finally leave Nigeria because the EndSARS protest happened.
I remember that.
A bunch of us were placed on no-fly lists. So I couldn't even leave the country via the airport. I had to sort of leave by road. At the time that I left, I didn't think it was going to be like permanent exile or something. I thought, well, there's a bit of heat on right now. Because clearly they just carried out a massacre. So clearly these guys are rattled. We don't know what they're capable of right now. So just leave for now. Maybe in 2-3 months when everything has calmed down, then you come. That's the idea I had in my head. I didn't know that was the last time I was going to see Nigeria till now as we're recording this.
Wow.
So I left.
Wait, but before you leave, what did you do during that EndSARS period?
So first of all, anyone who was perceived as a protest leader or instigator or whatever was placed on the list by the DSS. The DSS is what you would call the DCI here.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That's
if you're placed on the list by the DCI, that's not good news.
Yeah.
You end up in a Subaru or something.
Yeah. So the Subaru.
So it was something similar in Nigeria. Nobody wants to be in that situation. And, after what actually ended the protest movement to all intents and purposes was an actual massacre. Like a bunch of people died at the Lekki Toll Plaza, which for some reason had become the spiritual beating heart of this protest movement. So at that point, you're thinking, these guys are willing to go that far because there was really no need to kill like 100 people. There was really no need. They could have gone in with horsewhips and, got everyone out of there. There had any number of things, but the decision to murder unarmed young civilians who are just basically staging a sit-in. That told me that something has fundamentally shifted about the way these people are approaching governing this country now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about to become a lot more dangerous for me. And then what made my mind up for me was, the night of the massacre itself, everyone who was in the area, including myself, the internet speeds fell off a cliff. So it was very difficult to even stay up to date with what was happening because the internet had clearly been throttled.
Mm.
So in immediate aftermath, there were these theories going around that like the telecom operators were working with the government and all that stuff. So some of the telecom operators felt like, if we don't get a hand on this narrative, we are going to get labeled, we're going to lose
business
the young people because Nigeria is like a very, very, very the median age of Nigeria is like 19 or something.
Wow.
Statistically, Nigerian is a teenager.
Wow.
So if you lose the young market in Nigeria, you're dead.
Yeah.
So they panicked and whatnot. So they put out they wrote a statement which they didn't put out. But I had access to that statement because I have, connects in the marketing space. Yeah. And buried somewhere in that statement was something which told me very, very clearly that, because what they said was that they had nothing to do with the internet slowed down or shut down. Now, what happened was that around 6:50, which was the time when the massacre began, that they suffered a series of coordinated fiber cuts. Now, fiber optic cables are not hanging in the air.
Yeah.
They're buried on the ground.
Yeah.
And the only people that know where they are the telecom operators and the government. Right? You can't cut a fiber optic cable because you can't get to it.
Yeah.
So essentially what they were saying was that the government cut the fiber optic cables.
Indirectly saying it.
That's basically what they were saying.
Yeah.
And at that time, the government was going around claiming that, maybe some people died, but it wasn't premeditated. That was their defense, right? Well, this was proof that it was premeditated. And I knew that I'm going to do this story. But as soon as I do this story, the first question that's going to be asked is, who is this guy's source?
Okay.
They're going to arrest me. They're going to ask me who is my source. It's going to be a whole mess. So I said, let me just leave before I publish this story. And then maybe, and very naively, maybe 2 or 3 months down the line,
you come back when things have calmed down.
Things would have calmed down. Maybe the international community would have taken some action, they would have imposed sanctions, Yeah, the world of 2020 was a very different world from 2020 to the one we live in now. So I left, and little did I know that was going to be it.
Wow.
So that was November 2020. So December 2020, I was there. More of us started also leaving. So there was a small community of us who were in Ghana. People who were involved in those protests. January 2021, February 2021, no change. At this point, I've all the money I left Nigeria with, I've kind of run through my savings and I'm starting to think, what am I actually going to do? I'm not doing my copywriting stuff anymore. I'm not really doing much. I'm just sort of waiting to see what's going to happen. And I'm just on Twitter every day, waiting for the European and American cavalry to ride in and announce that they've imposed sanctions on Muhammadu Buhari. Of course they didn't. In fact, they welcomed him to London literally the month after. And at the time, I didn't understand what I was looking at. Why are these people not doing something? You are the protectors of democracy and whatnot. This is the most anti-democratic thing this guy could possibly do. People have died. What is going on? And I think it was March 2021. Just at that point when I'm thinking, okay, so I don't know what I'm even going to do at all. I'm completely lost at this point. I'm broke, dead broke as well. I'm just completely confused. I mean, Ghana is my second home because I've been in and out since I was a child.
Okay.
But it's at that point was still not a place where I was equipped to survive for the long term. So what am I going to do? And then again, I guess the universe, as it does, found a way for me to, to get a way out. So, if you recall, during the pandemic, everyone in Edo was opening a Substack. Everyone was opening a Substack. I had even opened one and I did nothing with it. I didn't publish it. In fact, the name I gave to it was an ironic name. I called it Another Boring Generic Newsletter. Yeah. That was literally the name I gave it. And for some reason, because I had a lot of traction on social media, people had started signing up to it, even though it literally had no branding, nothing. And I gave it an ironic name.
Wow.
People just started signing up. So that was like late 2020. So 2021, March, I then came across this thing. I think someone tagged me on Twitter or something and said, Substack they're doing a program where they're looking for 12 writers and journalists from around the world. And they want to fund them for 1 year to write local stories, basically. Local journalism. So I put in an application because,
why not?
If I do. They only selected one person from the whole of Africa, and that one person turned out to be me. I'll also mention that there was a catch. There's always a catch. Location-based pay.
Location-based pay.
So the Americans and the Europeans who were on the same cohorts, they got paid like $75,000. Like that was their funding for 1 year. I got 30,000.
Okay.
Because it's Africa.
So they were going with the minimum wage of your country, of the country that you're in.
I think they literally just said it's Africa. I give him less than half of what those ones have. I think that's what it was.
Not surprised.
Yeah. So that's kind of like how I dug myself out of not just the financial hole, but also the psychological hole I was in at the time, because I was genuinely confused. I didn't know what to do. It was like, what also contributed to that confusion was that the very last story that I ever did on Newswire, which was a story which is still quite personal to me. It was a story about a job seeker in Nigeria who had gone missing. And basically she was murdered, right? She responded to what she thought was a job interview. It was actually some guy who was some sort of serial killer, ritual killer, whatever it was. And she got murdered. And I did what you would call a remote investigation. So I did some things that had never been done in Nigerian journalism before. I had access to a contact at the telco that the attacker used. So I think I don't want to mention the telco's name. Yeah, but I had a contact behind the scenes who gave me access to the murderer's call logs, the numbers they've been calling, the duration of the call. The only thing I didn't get was the actual voice recording of the call. Wow. But I got everything else, which was, by the way, information I was not supposed to have, because this was an active, ongoing police investigation. And basically, I did my own remote investigation, and I was able to use so in addition to call logs, the information that came from telco was also stuff like cell tower locations and stuff. So I was literally able to geolocate this guy, and I was able to prove that at so and so date and at so and so time, this is where this person was. This is who he was talking to. It was a story that actually brought two new people into the case because I identified them. That this person, that as soon as he killed this girl, the first number he called is this guy who happens to work for the government. And that this is where this guy was. This is where they met. I was able to prove that. You can Google the story. It's called Who Killed Inil Morin. Who Killed Inil Morin. Yeah, it's still on the Newswire website, actually. So that story, it kind of broke me psychologically a bit because I've never, they will always tell journalists, don't get emotionally involved in your stories.
But this one did.
I always get emotionally involved in my stories, obviously, but this one was
on another level.
Like I felt really invested in it because, again, she was an orphan. Some context. She was an orphan. She had struggled through school. She was basically just your typical Nigerian, just trying to get by. She had been called up to do her youth service, and she just needed like a job in the interim to just keep herself going until she went for youth service, which you get paid for. And then she got murdered. And it was like, it just really stung. Can we not catch a break? because like the memories of EndSARS are still quite fresh in my mind. Because what EndSARS was, in case like you're not entirely aware of this, it was basically a generation's attempt to assert itself. And then it got brutally slapped down. So there was a psychological injury, which I think all of us from those two generations, the Gen Z and the millennials, the younger millennials, but I'm not a younger millennial, but like the mid to younger millennials, there's a psychological injury which all of us still carry till today.
Is it almost the same as the Gen Z protests in 2024 for Kenya?
It's very similar, but I would say the psychological injury that we carry is worse because unlike in Kenya where the Kenyans were able to show a lot more resistance.
Okay.
It felt like the first sign of real violence from the states, the whole thing crumbled. And then the violence from the state, like in Kenya, they would shoot a person today, shoot a person tomorrow. It was piecemeal. Imagine how the so-called Githurai massacre, right? Imagine the Githurai massacre scaled up to like a factor of 3. And then imagine this is the very first encounter with state violence. Imagine what that does to the group psyche.
Wow.
Because all of you are there thinking, okay, we're getting something going here. We're asserting ourselves. And some of us are even starting to think maybe this is going beyond just calling for an end to police brutality. Maybe we're also calling for the president to step down, as is our right to do. Right? And that is happening. And then the state does this one thing, like they take a hammer to a fly. Like they go from 0 to 100 immediately. And like it is so unnecessary and it's so gratuitous. To give you an idea of just how terrible it was, they were going around for the next couple of days. Hospitals in the area were hiding people, like survivors, because they were going around. Military and soldiers and police were going around to the hospitals in the Lekki and Victoria Island area. If they find someone that, like, maybe there's a gunshot wound or something, they take the person away. A few hours later, they dump the body in front of the hospital. We're doing that for the next 2 or 3 days.
What's the death toll in total around?
The official death toll, that when they admitted death toll, is 99.
Okay.
It's multiples of that. But the admitted death toll is 99. Like the death toll admitted by the coroner, the Lagos State coroner, is 99. It's multiples of that, but we will never know how many, because we also heard from several eyewitness accounts that they were also getting rid of bodies. So they burned some bodies. They did water burials for somebody. So there's a whole bunch of people who just went missing. Until today, nobody knows what happened to them. Wow. So we're all carrying that psychological injury around. And then this lady's story just somehow triggered me. Like, so a young person in this country really cannot catch any sort of break.
You can't catch any break.
And it really, really, really got to me. So that was the last ever story that I did on Newswire, actually. Partly because I felt like I needed the break psychologically, and partly because the reaction to the story, this was a recurring thing, but the reaction to the story made me feel like, you know what, maybe to an extent, you people don't even deserve me. Because one thing that I had started experiencing at the time, even though I didn't know why, was that I thought I was just doing great work, public interest work. It's for the greater good, it's for the general good. I'm not making any money out of this. There's literally nothing in this for me. I'm doing this because I want this place to be a better place. That's it. Why are you attacking me? I didn't understand at the time that there's a whole infrastructure of what they call journalism, which is basically US funded, that requires the status quo to remain in power. And that just by existing and by wielding influence, I was spoiling it. I was spoiling the game for some people. I didn't know that. I didn't know that there's millions of dollars that go into maintaining that information paucity in Nigeria's information space. And that money almost invariably comes from Washington, D.C. I didn't know any of this. All I knew was you guys are supposed to be journalists. For whatever reason, you are not doing your job, or you're not doing it well enough. So I have decided to use my training to do the job that you won't do. So why are you getting hurt about it? Why are you constantly, there are industry WhatsApp groups and whatnot, which I was never a member of, but people will send me screenshots and they spend hours talking about me. Oh, he's not a real journalist. What he does isn't journalism. That was their favorite refrain. David Hundeyin is not a real journalist. What he does isn't journalism. He's a sensationalist. He's an alarmist. He's a conspiracy theorist. He's a lot of ists, right? So after that story, I kind of took a break for a while. And then the Substack thing came in and I was selected. And then I basically had the opportunity to set up my own platform for the first time. So what became West Africa Weekly?
West Africa Weekly.
That's how it came into existence. I literally needed a name for the Substack newsletter. And I thought, okay, I want this to be weekly. And since it's a local news project, I want it to be focused on Nigeria, but, I'm not in Nigeria now, I'm in Ghana. So
West Africa.
Let's make it West Africa. That's literally where the name came from. So that's how West Africa Weekly became a thing. And that was where I took that concept of storified investigative journalism and I made it a brand.
That's how I came to know your work.
Yeah. So all the major stories that you know me for, the Flutterwave investigation, that's probably where you saw me for the first time, because that was where I went from the level of notoriety I had to an international level of notoriety, which would later end up almost, costing me my life. But anyway, that's a story. We'll get to that.
So, wow. So tell me, with all those things, do you miss Nigeria, and do you see with the way politics is going in Nigeria, do you see yourself coming back home?
With the way politics is going right now, no. Because all I see is a continuation of the status quo. There is no real opposition in Nigeria. There are people who call themselves opposition groups. There's an opposition coalition. But as far as I'm concerned, everyone is basically playing a scripted role, and this scripted role that the opposition has is to lose.
Okay.
Because in 2023, right, when I thought that based on all this work that I've done, based on these exposés that I've put into the public domain, based on how I've made it clear that Bola Tinubu should absolutely not in 1,000 years be allowed to go anywhere near the presidency of Africa's most populous country, based on all, and I went to absurd extents. Like as far as I'm aware, I'm the only Nigerian journalist dead or alive who has sued the US government to gain access to records about a Nigerian politician.
Oh, okay.
Like 5 different US government agencies. So the FBI, the State Department, the IRS, the, what's it called? The DOJ, the US Attorney's Office, and the CIA.
Wow.
I sued all of them.
The big guns.
Yeah, in federal FOIA court, that you've not honored my freedom of information request. You have to produce what records you have on this person. Because you have admitted that you have records on this person. The FBI admitted we have close to 70,000 pages of records about him, that if we refine it, we have 2,500 pages of relevant records about this guy. Why does the FBI have 2,500 pages of investigative records on somebody that wants to be my president? What were they investigating about this person?
Just something.
And then the IRS has this whole affidavit on public record where they state publicly, we seized $500,000 from this guy's bank accounts being the proceeds of drug trafficking. I mean, it's so obvious what is going on here. It's so obvious. Not only do you know exactly who this guy is and what he has been doing, but you are protecting him.
Oh, so why are they protecting you?
That is the question. And that's when my entire frame for understanding the world started to shift in 2023, because that was when I started to understand that these Muzungu institutions that we've been taught to look up to, or we've been taught to think of as the democratic gold standard, the people who work for the benefit of the greater good and who know what they're doing and all of that stuff, that's not the case at all. That these people have some interest, whatever that interest is, in protecting this person so that he became Nigeria's president. Meanwhile, I know very well that this person should be nowhere near that seat.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that if this person becomes president, then the suffering of the last 8 years is going to be doubled.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen what happened in 2015 when my country fell off a cliff. And by the way, I was affected too. You know, it wasn't just a thing that I saw happen to other people. I was also affected. Maybe not to the same extent as them, but if 2015 had gone a different way, I wouldn't be sitting here with you right now. So, back then there was something called, the Local Content Act. So it was a thing in the Nigerian oil industry where instead of just bringing in expatriates to do all sorts of skilled jobs, the government was requiring everyone in the oil industry, both oil majors and contractors, to train locals to do certain jobs. And I was about to become a beneficiary of that. So there was a new entrant to the helicopter space. It was called Atlantic Aviation, which was affiliated with CHC, the Canadian Helicopter Corporation. And they were going to be doing oil lifting for some of the oil companies. So instead of just hiring a bunch of white people to come and fly the helicopters as they normally would, based on this government initiative, they were required to open a cadet pilot program. They said they wanted 12 people.
Okay.
They got like 6,000 applications and what that. Like the process of filtering it down was brutal, right? But I went through all the stages. I was one of the 12.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So somewhere in Lagos, in the NCAA, that's Civil Aviation Authority, I have an NCAA medical license because I did my medical, my aviation medical. I got measured for my pilot's uniform and everything. As soon as the new guy came into power, all of that disappeared because the first thing he did was the people he considered to be his people,
his cronies,
not just his cronies, his ethnic affiliation.
Okay.
He made sure that any kind of contracts in Nigeria's oil industry. So there's an organization in the oil industry called NAPIMS. They're like a regulator that oversees any contract in the oil industry, whether it's an oil lifting contract, whether it's a transport contract, whatever it is, you can't sign a piece of paper without NAPIMS say so.
What about the NNPC?
No, the NNPC is a state oil company.
Okay, state oil company.
So NAPIMS is the regulator within the space.
Okay.
And what he simply did was he just made it such that the guy he puts in charge of NAPIMS, if your name is not Abubakar or Ahmed or Yerima or you're not getting it. Simple as that.
Okay.
And those oil lifting contracts that Atlantic Aviation was supposed to get, they didn't get. And that's it. That's how my aviation dream died. And that's how I remained in marketing.
Tribalism.
Yeah. They had asked us to submit our passports. We're going to go to Florida to the Bristol Academy for our basic pilot training. And then it just didn't happen. So 2015 wasn't just like a hypothetical thing that people were, I was affected as well. So I'm thinking now that I have gone through all this trouble to make sure that my people had the information that they needed to have in 2023. And to be fair to them, they actually used that information because there is nobody who genuinely believes that this guy actually won that election. Even he himself doesn't believe it. He knows he didn't win it or come close to it. But he's been declared winner by hook or by crook. Now there's a legal challenge ongoing. I need these documents that conclusively, beyond any threshold of any kind of doubt, however reasonable or unreasonable, proves that this guy is a character that is unfit for public office. This person is a drug dealer. This person should be nowhere near that. And the US State Department is protecting this guy. Why are they doing that?
That's a big question.
You know, the DEA, the same DEA, you know, we watched Narcos on Netflix and the DEA that claims that they fought drug trafficking. Why are they protecting a drug trafficker? And the DOJ is playing, you know, the kind of courtroom gamesmanship you would expect from a Nigerian courtroom. You're seeing this in US federal court. And you're like, oh, okay. So the world didn't work the way I thought it did then. Because like when you can see the lawyer working for the US government blatantly lying in court, like in writing, blatantly lying. And then the judge is playing dumb. And you're like, I've seen this before, but I saw it in Nigeria. So this happens at this level too. Okay, so the world that I thought existed was a make-believe place. It was a construct that existed inside my head. Because in real life, this is who these people actually are. And they're clearly protecting this guy. I mean, when he was declared winner, who was the first head of state on the planet to send a congratulatory social media post? The very first, before even any African head of state. Who was the first? It was Rishi Sunak, the British Prime Minister.
British Prime Minister at that time. Yes. Oh.
Why would the British Prime Minister be the first head of state in the world to congratulate an illegitimate president? What happened there?
Wow.
So, and then I think something else there were a number of things that I saw in 2023. Something else that I noticed that made my frame of reality sort of completely break and shatter was, I remember it was May 2023. I was invited to London to speak at a press conference which the opposition had organized. It was meant to be like a big global press conference. All the big media houses were supposed to be there. BBC, ITV, Sky, CNN, everybody. Right. It was supposed to hold at Chatham House. That's the International Institute of International Affairs, whatever it's called, at Leicester Square in London, or King George Square, whatever it's called. First of all, Chatham House cancelled.
Okay.
Right. Like they had agreed. And then, so the organizers had sent an initial list of people who were going to appear. Chatham House had agreed. Then they invited me and I agreed. So they then sent a supplementary list. Okay, these people are also going to appear, and Chatham House pulled out. And then all the major, so I showed up on the day. So we ended up changing the venue to a place called the ILEC Conference Center in West London. We showed up on the day, and all the major news platforms that had said that they were going to show up, BBC, Sky, within a 24-hour period, all of them one by one pulled out, one by one, within 24 hours, like less than 48 hours to the date. Within 24 hours, each of them pulled out. And at the time, I remember thinking, this is a hell of a coincidence. What is going on here? And then it came out, it emerged a few months later that wasn't just some random coincidence that happened. There was a D notice. Now, if you don't know what a D notice is, it's a notice that is passed from the British government to the editors of media establishments, strongly advising them not to cover a particular topic or not to publish a particular story. So on paper, it says it's non-binding. You are not required to do it, but you are strongly advised. And I was thinking, wait. I'm appearing at a press conference in London, and these people put a D notice on the press conference. What happened to your freedom of press that you can never shut up about? You have freedom of press. You want to use BBC Media Action to train Nigerian journalists all the time. They're constantly in Nigeria doing one training on the other. They're there right now, right? As we're recording this, they're there right now. You are training journalists, you're training radio professionals and TV, but your so-called bastion of free media at home in London, Fleet Street, I didn't even know what a D notice was at the time. And it just made my entire sense of reality just completely invert itself. Because then I realized everything I thought I knew, I didn't know. And the way I thought the world worked, it didn't work that way at all. And then what was then like the final, like, slap in the face for me was, June that year, 2023. So this guy just over a month in office. Then there was a coup in Niger.
Okay.
And next thing I know, this guy is trying to send the Nigerian military into Niger. I'm like, huh? What? Like, from where to where? Like, Nigeria has had like 7 military coups in its existence. Nobody has ever put troops on Nigerian soil because of a coup. What business was Nigeria? And then it became clear that this idea wasn't his. It wasn't his decision.
It was whose decision?
It's one Emmanuel Macron in Paris.
Okay.
Who decided that Niger must not be allowed to leave the French sphere of influence in West Africa, and that the Nigerian military should be used as the enforcer. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, so if that is the case, then isn't that exactly what these Pan-Africanist people have been talking about when they say that African leaders are used as proxies and they're not really working for African people and they're not really in power. They're not really, they've been installed by, is this not what that is? Am I not seeing a live example of this?
That's what we've been saying for years, guys.
Because I used to be one of those people that when I would hear that kind of thing, I would say it's a conspiracy theory.
Oh, really?
I used to be one of them.
So you used to watch people like me, like, come on.
Absolutely. 100%. 100%. I used to be one of those people. In fact, I think it's still on YouTube. I don't know if it's been taken down. The first TED Talk, either first or the second TED Talk I ever delivered. I think this was sometime in 2020, either 21 or 22, when I was at the peak of
peak of your power,
my personal agency era.
Yeah.
Like I'm overdosed on personal agency. I'm taking responsibility. I'm not blaming anyone, blah, blah, blah. I did a TED Talk where I basically said something to the effect of Africans need to stop belly aching about who does or doesn't want their resources. African resources are not that important. Resources are everywhere in the world. And that basically Africans should go and learn how to code. Basically, like that's not exactly what I said, but long and short, that's basically what I was saying. Stop belly aching about who may or may not be leaning their imperial weight on Africa, and basically get to work. You don't have any excuse. Yeah, stop. What's that famous phrase? Stop blaming it on the white man. Take responsibility. I used to be one of those people. 100%. And this is happening in front of my eyes. And I'm there with my personal agency thinking, no way. And then someone in the chain of command leaks the attack instructions to me, because bear in mind, this was a secret operation.
Okay.
Initially, the Nigerian public did not know that this was actually happening. It was a secret operation. How I knew was that someone in the chain of command leaked the attack instructions to me, like the actual document from the defense headquarters, which is a very, very classified document. We just having it is a serious offense. And guess what I do with my personal agency? I go post it on Twitter.
Okay.
Because I'm thinking, personal agency, I am going to stop this from happening. I'm not going to sit here and belly ache and blame France. Instead, I'm going to stop it from happening. Right? I don't know if what I did is entirely responsible for stopping it from happening. I know they were very, very, very upset about it when it got to the public domain, and they started accusing me of treason. And then what had happened was that he had tried to deploy the military into Niger without Senate approval, which is against the law.
Almost the same thing with the Benin coup the other day.
Yeah, it's exactly what he did, but it's just that he was unsuccessful the first time around.
Okay.
So he tried to deploy without Senate approval, which is against the law. And after I did that expose or whatever, then the Senate basically said, no, you can't deploy the military. And so I don't know if I was entirely responsible for it or how much of a role I played, but I know I played a role and I paid a very heavy price for it, because in my mind, after the Senate said no, I'm thinking, okay, job done. Moving on. I've proved to myself that whether there is an element of neocolonialism here or not, personal agency, Africans taking responsibility, stopped it from happening. I was in Ghana, obviously. Next thing I know, they sent a letter to the Ghanaian government asking the Ghanaian government to basically hand me over, claiming that I've committed treason and I have compromised an ECOWAS security operation. Because technically they claimed that it was ECOWAS that wanted to stage the invasion, not Nigeria. So by sabotaging an ECOWAS security operation, and obviously Ghana is part of ECOWAS, that means that Ghana should hand me over.
Ooh. Okay.
And I was in Ghana. And then they don't only send a letter, they then dispatch a jet. That's the National Intelligence Agency of Nigeria, under the leadership of a guy called Ahmed Rufai Abubakar. He's been fired now. But he dispatched a jet to Accra, and they were literally looking for me. Fortunately, sometimes when you are, I think the people who are in these spaces or who are in these rooms where these things are being discussed, they know when you mean well, but you just don't know anything. They know.
So somebody tipped you.
Somebody tipped me off.
Okay.
You know, a lot of the time you have friends that you don't know you had. And the reason you have those friends is that they are just looking at you and thinking, oh, you poor fool. You really have no idea, do you? And he tipped me off, and literally, like, I had hours to spare to get the hell out of Ghana at that time. Wow. So there was really nowhere to go. I didn't have a valid UK visa, so I couldn't go so I just needed to get out of West Africa because I felt like if I'm within the ECOWAS zone right now, I'm in trouble. So, I went by road to Togo because Ghana is right next to Togo. I've told this story. This story is actually in my book. So I spent like 3 nights. So I booked, back then you needed an ETA to travel to Kenya. Because Kenya was the only place that I thought it's far enough away from West Africa. Nobody really knows me here like that. So I can just come here and lay low for a while. So I applied for a Kenyan ETA. I got it within 15 minutes, which was like borderline miraculous.
Wow.
You know, but that was on a Sunday. The next early Sunday morning, like 1 a.m. The next available flight was on a Wednesday. It was Ethiopian Airlines. So it was Lome to Addis to Nairobi. So I was there in that was some dingy ass motel room in Lome. Just literally, did not sleep for 3 days, just watching the clock tick. And then I had been advised that I should maintain my social media facade as though I was still in Ghana.
Oh.
So I was posting vacation pictures of myself at Adomi Bridge. Meanwhile, I was in another country.
Because I was almost asking you, like, did you switch off your phone to?
I was using a VPN. And as soon as I crossed the border from Ghana, I ditched my Ghanaian SIM.
Okay.
In case it was being monitored, which it definitely was. You know, so I tried to take some precautions, but even then, you know, there's no such thing as privacy. There's no such thing as absolute, you know, online security. So I was just there, just hoping that I don't end up as roadkill. And then finally the day of the flight comes, the morning of the flight comes, I get to the airport, I clear the immigration check and everything. And then just at the point where you get to the place where you take off your shoes and everything, I was literally walking past the guy with like a computer screen, and I saw like my picture and my details. I was clearly on a watch list, right? And he called me back, and I'm thinking, okay, this is it.
It's over.
I'm done here. And then someone else, I don't know whether it's a supervisor or something, goes and has a word with him in his ear. And he's like, go. Till today, I don't know what that was. I don't know what it is that he told him.
But what can you insinuate? Like, if you can guess, what was that?
If I'm going to guess, I think it's somebody who was sympathetic to me and who had the power to act like they didn't see me. That's what I think it was. I can't prove it.
Okay.
I can't prove it.
Wow.
So I got on the flight, and I think I didn't sleep until we had, like, cause you have to, from Ghana, you have to fly across Togo. From Togo, you have to fly across Benin, then Nigeria, then Cameroon. I don't think my eyes blinked until we crossed into Cameroonian airspace. Like, okay, even if the plane goes down here, I go down in Cameroon, which is not in ECOWAS. So,
really? Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
So I have a bit of a chance here. That's how I got to Kenya, and I tried to lay low for a bit. A few weeks in Kenya, next thing I know, I don't know how to call him, my mentor in Ghana is a guy called Anas. I don't know if you heard of him. This journalist who wears he wears a mask on his face. So like nobody ever sees his real face.
Oh, I don't think so.
Anas Arameyaw Anas.
I don't think so.
Okay, he's like.
But I've seen a podcaster wearing a mask. I don't know if it's.
He might be the one. He's like my big brother, because during the time when I did the Tinubu story and there were noises about my life being in danger or whatnot, he took me under his protection.
Wow.
I was living in a safe house.
Wow.
His safe house. So he runs an organization called the Whistleblowers and Journalists Safety International Center. They operate a network of safe houses across Africa. So I was there for a while, for months. So he basically kept me alive during a very testing time. So Anas, I was in Nairobi, here in Nairobi. Anas calls me and he's like, what did you do? I'm like, what do you mean? What did I do? What's going on? And he's like, he's just come out of a meeting with the vice president and they're about to cancel your Ghanaian passport. I'm like, what? And he's like, so like, then I have to go do a video appeal. You might have seen it because I put out the video on Twitter then in 2023. Put out the video appeal appealing to the Ghanaian president.
Oh, I saw that. I saw
not to revoke my passport. And
it was a Kufuor at that time.
Yes, exactly.
Wow.
You know, and then a few weeks after that, I then get word from a different person within the security architecture that they know you're in Kenya and they've sent people there to look for you. So then at that time, the UN, the 54th session of the UN Human Rights Council they were sitting in Geneva. So someone, a guy, funny enough, a Catholic priest, you know, which was ironic for me being that I'm not a Christian, but a guy called, I'm not going to mention his name, but he's a Catholic priest and he ran an organization called Vivat International, who was supposed to speak on the floor of the UN Human Rights Council. So he gave me his space.
Okay. Wow.
So I was able to record a video message. I was staying at some dingy ass little bed-sitter apartment at Ngong Road. I think it's called Racecourse Gardens.
Okay.
One tiny place, B1 or something. I was there for weeks. That was where I recorded that video.
Wow.
So just based on the sheer amount of noise that those things made and the amount of potential embarrassment that it would have caused for whoever was coming after me, they kind of stepped back for a while. Right. Which is probably why I'm still here today.
Okay.
Right.